Admittedly, having watched the movie for the first time on March 6, 2026, I am very late. It was only after seeing a few think pieces and hearing Ryan talk about his inspiration for the film that I became interested in seeing it. It's been a very long time since I've watched a movie that made my mind short circuit trying to figure out and put in exact words what I just watched. Immediately after the movie, I was simply in a daze. It was a lot to unpack. What just happened was the lingering question. About 30 minutes of trying to sort through all the information that my mind absorbed during the 2+ hour film, my conclusion was that it was not a traditional horror film, but a serious tragedy. It was a very tragic story of what it means to be a Black American, an unhealthy legacy with death as the only option for true freedom and peace. Let's unpack. Trauma, trauma, trauma. One of the first things that I noticed from a health perspective is a character's discussion surrounding trauma. It was as if trauma is understood to be a necessary part of the Black experience. The question is never whether abuse exists, but to what extent. Not too much and not too bad gets an okay. Every character seems to suffer from trauma. From the beginning to the end, we see that to be Black in America is to be battered and bruised by loved ones, natural causes, and strangers. Trauma by loved ones. The twins' father was abusive, Sammy's father was abusive, and Perlene seems to imply that her husband is either abusive or very aggressive when she tells Sammy that he might bite off more than he can chew. Trauma by natural causes. Smoke and Annie lost their child, which had a profound impact on their relationship. Trauma by strangers. Slim was beaten almost to death by the police. The slaughterhouse indicates long-standing vicious torture of blacks. Slim's friend was publicly disgraced, beaten, and lynched based on a lie. Smoke seems to have PTSD from his time as a soldier. Remick even expresses trauma when talking about the taking of his father's land by religious men, and Smoke and Stack lose each other in a very traumatic way. Danger everywhere. Another noticeable theme in Sinners from a health perspective was the constant threat of danger or lack of safety. It seemed that the Black characters were in danger at all times. There was no secured or reliability on safety. There was always either real-time or present danger or looming danger. Examples include Smoke's truck getting robbed while he's in the store. Smoke and Stack would eventually have to deal with those they stole from. The sale of the mill was a trap to end their lives. Remick wanted to kill them for his own gain. And trusted ones like Grace and Mary increased the Black characters' risk of danger and proximity to harm. Systematic chains. Another tragic experience highlighted in Sinners, when viewed from a health perspective, is how various societal systems operate together to chain the Black characters to an unhealthy status. It seemed that each character was unsuccessful in trying to pull from the chains to achieve happiness and peace through the freedom of self-expression. We hear it directly from Remick when he tells them in a very clear and matter-of-fact way that, as Black people in this society, they do not stand a chance unless they join him. We see it in all the characters. Mary is trapped in a life based on the system of social/racial class obtained through her white passing appearance. Smoke and Stack tried to run to the Black community, but the system of Black respectability shunned them from the community. They then went to the north via Chicago, which was just a different type of devil, so they returned to the south, the devil they knew. This confirms that they constantly faced the system of racism. The system of scarcity had Slim and Cornbread fearful of the opportunities presented by Stack. Do they risk losing the little they have from their stable job to pursue an unstable but more fulfilling opportunity? The use of vampires intentionally suggests that the most dangerous system is temptation, which is powerful and everlasting in the form of sex, money, and alcohol. Even in the end, Sammy, being close to death, is tempted by Stack to live forever playing blues. Although he declines, he did seem to consider it. Sammy's character proves that, even if you progress in the system to freedom of self-expression, because of the scars you carry from the journey and constant battle with the various systems, it rarely amounts to happily ever after. You somehow are always chained by one or more of the societal systems. Sammy did not have a happy ending, even though he ended up building a life off of his talent. That gives us insight into the damage that the night with Remick caused to the rest of his life due to the lingering scars from its traumatic events. Perhaps Sammy's story is the most tragic of all. His talent never brought him to a place of peace or freedom, which proved Rimmick to be right. Another noticeable theme in Sinners was the lack of support available to the black characters. With all the pressure, obstacles, and threats that the black characters face on all fronts, perhaps the saddest part is that there was no safe option of support or help, only religious escapism. Even with Annie's healing and protection practices, she could not save the people bitten nor guarantee the safety of the living. This positions Remick to operate as both the danger and the savior for the black characters. The fake ally in Hogwood exposes those who pretend to be of value when plotting against you in the worst way. The off-code actions of Grace and Mary show that, when things get too difficult, those outside of the community will likely not be able to stick it out or continue to offer support. In fact, their actions may increase the risk of danger. We also see that even surviving Rimmick would not have entitled the characters to live in peace. Immediately after them surviving Rimmick, Hogwood and his crew would come to the mill to cause harm. In the end, Sinners seems to indicate that there is no trusted unconditional hero or support system for the black characters. They are on their own to face everything that comes their way. High vulnerability. The Pick Poor Robbing Clean song is haunting because it exemplifies just how vulnerable the black characters were despite having the majority. Poor Robin is an indication of vulnerability or lack of protection, which exposes him to the danger and ultimate end of being picked clean. This can operate as figurative representation of the black characters being drained of their internal or external resources. It can also operate as a literal representation of the torture that the black characters endured in their lives. Poor Robin equates to the vulnerable, unprotected status of the black characters, which opens them up to being literally drained of resources via Hogwood and the system he represents, or figuratively picked apart for their internal value, treasure, or talents by Rimmick and the system he represents. Money tricks. The use of money or discussion surrounding money in Sinners seems to highlight the tricky ways money is used in society. When Smoke asks the teenager to watch the truck, he lowballs her. The exchange shows how people with money, even black people, can take advantage of those who need money by proposing them a below value exchange. A similar money exchange happens with the Chows, who, when negotiating a sign for the mill, are not upfront about the paints available for the sign. Smoke is forced to figure out the shortcomings of the deal alone to avoid being swindled by even those who present themselves as trustworthy. This is akin to agreements with undisclosed, hidden, or deceptive terms. Rimmick also offers Mary money that will ultimately not be of any value to her because she will become a vampire. He offers it in exchange for her soul and the abilities to get to Sammy in the mill. It is akin to a fake agreement that only benefits the person making the offer. Another trick using money was when Hogwood tried to offer Smoke money in exchange for his life. The audience knows that if Hogwood lives, then he would likely terrorize blacks in the community in retaliation for Smoke's audacity in killing his friends. Hogwood also knew that the money was of no value to the dying Smoke. It was another deceptive use of money. Powerlessness. Another theme that stuck out in Sinners was the character's powerlessness. Slim's character embodies this and drinks to escape his powerlessness against the system and injustice. This is present in the scene where Slim tries to encourage the prison workers and is silenced by the officer's gunfire, after which he frighteningly returns to his seat, shaken up by the moment. There was also the scene where Smoke doubted Slim's ability to guard the door of the club. Slim was also challenged by both Grace and Mary as having little value or power. Another instance of powerlessness was when Mary approached Stack at the train station, and he was visibly uncomfortable and fearful of the potential consequences. Likewise, we see Smoke powerless immediately after Stack's death and after learning the gravity of the situation. This powerlessness prompts Grace to challenge his capabilities as a soldier. Reliance on religion. Sinners starts with a nod to the historical reliance on religion in the black community. We see this in each exchange between Sammy and his father. His father tries to use religion to control him and manipulate him into giving up his passion. We also see this when Smoke tries to convince Sammy to go to the independent black community and use his religious background to gain favor with the respectable black people living there. At one of the most climactic moments in the movie, we see Sammy's reliance on religion to save him from being bitten by Remick. Sammy's Our Father prayer distracted Remick and presented the opportunity for him to deliver a meaningful blow, which contributed to Remick's downfall. Status quo. The cotton fields in Sinners seem to be never ending. They go on for miles and miles and seem to represent the constant reminder of the black character's forced inferiority and limited options within the society. Although they are driving, which symbolizes progress, they can't seem to get past the cotton fields and leave them behind. Instead, the cotton fields go on as a constant reminder that nothing much will change with the passing of time. CP time. Something that struck me as odd was the fact that Sinners was based on the events of one day. When I saw One Day Earlier after the opening scene of the movie, I was genuinely confused. Having watched the movie later than most and seen a few think pieces, none of which gave me a true analysis of the movie, I did not expect that the timeline for the events of the movie would be 24 hours. Having watched the movie, I realized that the think pieces I saw were fixated on three things: colorism, racism, and capitalism. From my health perspective lens of the movie, none of those things were as important as the 9 themes that I explained. The 24-hour timeline in Sinners seems to be a deliberate highlight to how the lives of Black Americans can drastically change in a short amount of time, and all that can be endured in 24 hours. We saw it in Fruitville Station, in the various tragic encounters with police over the years, in various experiences within the medical field, as well as with Ryan's own experience in Bank of America. The life of any Black person in America can be drastically changed in minutes. Thus, 24 hours was more than enough time for all of the events in Sinners. My conclusion is that, from start to finish, Sinners is perhaps the most thought-provoking film to capture the Black American experience and has far surpassed any expectations that I could have imagined.